Hi, welcome back to Write Better Right Now. I have been talking about plot, specifically goal, motivation, and conflict, which are incredibly important for making sure that you have enough drama and tension in the story. So the goal is what your character wants or needs to do, motivation is why it's important, and the conflict is why it's difficult. Going deeper into conflict. Why is it difficult for the characters to achieve their goal? Not just why is life difficult for them, but why are they specifically going to struggle to achieve that goal that you set up pretty early in the story? One of the big problems I see when I do manuscript critiques is that a novel might have multiple chapters at the beginning where the character is suffering a lot and their work or school is terrible, their family situation is terrible, or they're in a fantasy world and everything is terrible there. So they're miserable. But misery is not a goal. It's just passively being uncomfortable with things. Worrying about what might happen or what is happening is not a goal, and wishing for things to be different is not a goal. So if that's what your characters are doing, keep in mind that you are writing passive characters who are at best reacting to the situation around them and maybe not even doing that, maybe just suffering through it. So characters have a goal when they want a specific thing, not a generic or general, I wish life were different, but specific thing that they want. They have a plan to get it. Doesn't have to be a great plan. It doesn't have to be a realistic plan at this point, but they should have some kind of plan. And then they should do things to work toward that goal. That's what makes characters active and gives you that goal, motivation, and conflict. Now, there may be times when you have a passive character. It is possible to write an entire novel with a passive character. It has been done. It's probably more common in literary novels that aren't really about the plot. If you have a really good reason for wanting to write a passive character, fine, go for it. But it is going to be harder to get your readers engaged and keep their attention if you have a passive character who isn't doing anything to reach a goal. So let's assume that in most cases, you're going to want to write an active character, particularly in most genre fiction and children's books. So we need to know the goal that you hopefully establish pretty early. We need to know why it's important, and then we need to see their effort to reach it. It doesn't mean you can't have your characters worrying or hoping. You absolutely want to show those feelings. If a character doesn't worry, then the reader might think there's no reason to worry, or they might wonder about a character who doesn't seem to be concerned about the situation. So you want to show their emotional reaction to what's happening. You want to show how they feel about working toward their goal and why it's so important to them, but don't just have pages and pages of worrying. Have them worry a bit, but then make a choice and move forward. Choose to do something to try to get where they want to go. I mentioned that my brother is a scriptwriter and wrote the original story that became the movie Sweet Home Alabama. After I saw it the first time, I was talking with him about it, and particularly the ending, which was kind of interesting because Melanie waits until really the last moment. She's ready to walk down the aisle to get married to the New York fiance when she realizes that's not what she wants. And what's unusual about this movie is that the New York fiance is kind of a great guy. He's not just good looking and successful and wealthy. He's actually very accommodating when she starts to freak out about things. He accommodates a lot of her requests. He would probably be a fantastic husband for a lot of women. And so it makes Melanie seem kind of cruel that she strings him along to this point before she figures out that's not what she wants. So I was talking to Doug about it, and he said that in a lot of romantic comedies in particular, the choice is too obvious. The female lead has a current boyfriend who is such a jerk that it's obvious to the audience that she should be with the other guy. And that means, first of all, that the female lead looks like an idiot because she doesn't recognize how horrible her boyfriend is. And second, that there's really no tension because it's so obvious what she should do. And it can actually be frustrating watching her make bad decisions up to that point. So, tension in a movie comes from choices. And the harder the choices are, the more tension you have. So in Sweet Home Alabama, having really two kind of great guys, it's not so much even that Melanie is choosing between who's the better guy. She's choosing between the different lifestyles and which one is a better fit for her. And because she has these two worlds, her past and what she's built for herself as an adult, that's a hard choice. So it provides more tension. And I don't know if that's the main reason that this movie has become such a beloved classic more than 20 years after it came out, but it may be part of it that there's a lot more tension than you would normally find in a romantic comedy. So think about tension coming from choices that your character is forced to make. It could be in a suspense novel. Do you run? Do you hide? Or do you fight when there's a dangerous situation? In a young adult romance, it could be which boy do you go out with, but it has to be a hard choice, not an easy one. It could be, do you keep a secret or do you tell? Again, that should be a hard choice, not one where it's really obvious to the reader, which is the correct choice, but maybe a young person might feel like this is a dangerous situation and I need to tell an adult, but I know that doing so would mean betraying my friend and possibly ruining the friendship. That's a hard choice. It could be, do you trust someone or not? And the reader and the character have not been given enough information to know whether trusting them would be a good choice. So tough choices or where there's no good answer, each answer is equally good or bad or unpredictable. Those are the best in terms of keeping tension in your story. So an exercise you can do with your work in progress or a future project. You may already have established by now your main character's goal, but if not, make sure that you can kind of say that clearly. Then ask, is your main character active throughout the story, doing things to reach that goal? Or do you have them sort of passively worrying about things, being unhappy, but not making choices and moving forward? Do you force your main character to make choices? And are those choices truly hard? Is it reasonable that your main character wouldn't know which is the best choice and that the reader might not know which is the best choice? That's it for today. And next week, I will come back and talk about raising the